My name is Eric Cabral. I work in the internships and career development office at Bunker Hill. So that's everything from internships, professional development. I'm going to get into all of that. I have 30 minutes. So if I blow through something that might be a little bit too quick, that's okay. We'll have time for some questions afterwards. I'll leave you my contact information, and you will also get a copy of this presentation as well. So let's jump right into it really quick. So if you're looking for more information and where to find us, that would be 2 clicks. You go to the main website, Student Life, and then we're right down here in the middle. You can also just go to bhcc.edu/internships. We're in the process of revamping our website as we speak. So we're trying to get it to be more cohesive and have a lot more information and just make it easier for you all. We'll do everything from cover letters and resumes and help you with those, interview preparation, personal branding, any type of professional communication if you're writing emails or thank you notes. Same thing with putting on workshops similar to this one. We have all different workshops throughout the year. Some of those are on LinkedIn or effective job searching, and there are many other ones that we're still creating. General questions and answers all day long. Again, you're going to get a copy of this PowerPoint where the information on the slide that I showed you previously, you'll have all of our contact information. And our office also does a lot of networking events. So like I told you, Matt and I are going out and trying to bring opportunities onto campus. What that looks like is it's all being done virtually. And so that is what we're calling career days now, where we're bringing the employers on campus to kind of speak to students. And then of course, as such with the internship, we run the internship course more or less. We oversee that process and then submitting and approving those internships as well. So where do we do all this? We do this in Handshake. I mentioned this before. Handshake is huge. 80% of the colleges across the country are using Handshake. You as a Bunker Hill student already have access to it. It's part of your single sign-on. All you have to do is go into your one login, and then you'll see Handshake, or you can also just use this link here. And again, this will all be in the presentation that you're going to get. So you don't have to worry about writing any of this down. If you are submitting an internship in Handshake really quick, this is what it looks like once your profile is set up. You go into Career Center, and then this is where you'll make appointments with us. This is pretty much how you access all of us. Again, the importance of Handshake is not just to make appointments with us and to track your internships, but it is a job portal. So the more information that you fill out, it will match content to you, just like TikTok or Facebook or any other social media platform. It will match jobs, opportunities, events, and that sort of thing to how much you fill out your profile. So try to get in there and fill that out as soon as you can, set that up. If you do end up transferring to a 4-year, it will stay with you. So let's get into resumes and cover letters. Really quick, the difference between a resume and a cover letter. Cover letter is a little bit more personal, right? You can talk in first person. With a resume, there are no pronouns that are used in the text, no first, second, or third person. It is an advertisement of itemized qualifications and accomplishment statements that just show what you are capable of. So when we talk about creating a resume, a lot of students will get stumped on, well, where do I begin? Do I grab a template and then start filling it in? The easiest solution is to just open up a blank Word document, and I'll explain why. We have 5 points or 6 points of content that we need to address, right? So this is the start of what we do. We type in where we worked, what our position was. We'll type in what city and state that a job occurred. We'll put in the dates, roughly month and year. You don't need the day. And then when we come to experiences, this is where we're going to start typing paragraphs as much as we can, because essentially you don't have to be responsible for putting it all, correcting it and making it sound professional. That's what we're here for. If there's more content for me to work with and I can understand what it is that you've been doing in this position, we can work together to make it sound better. But if you're coming with a blank document and then we have to ask questions and it goes back and forth, that process might take a lot longer. And typically, if you're applying to a position, there's usually a deadline. Once we get that content out of the way, now we're looking at the smaller stuff, right? The format, fonts, colors, bulleting things. Are we in chronological order with the dates, right? People read from left to right, top to bottom. So we want newest stuff at the top, oldest stuff at the bottom. Then from there, we're looking at layout, which I'll get into more. You'll see a visual representation of what I mean by horizontal and vertical. Consistency. If there are periods at the end of your bullets, at the end of your statements where your bullets are, make sure there's periods at the end of each one. Make sure everything is consistent and that there's no difference. It might not sound like, it may sound minuscule, but a recruiter who's looking at these all day long, they're going to notice that stuff. When we talk about correlation, this is you tying in your statements or your experiences that you typed up, right? They were in paragraph form at first, and then we put them in bullets, and now we need to tie them to the job that we're applying to. All right, that's where we come in. We can help you with that as well. Proofreading and spellagramming, multiple suggestions here. You can use Grammarly, you can use spell check, that's fine, but always proofread it yourself. Have someone else proofread it and read it out loud when you read it to yourself. When we read things in our head, sometimes we fill in the gaps and we miss things. This is just an action word bank. You can Google this, you can get this anywhere. These are really super helpful when you're trying to create that content for the experiences and you're asking yourself, oh, well, what did I do in management? Or what did I do in finances? When I worked in finance, sorry. And you look at these words and you say, oh, well, I definitely budgeted this in this. And then you start to kind of get an idea of what you can talk about. This is good to start off with the accomplishment statement. So typically these are like action verbs. So in a way that you would be describing something that you did. Some do's and don'ts really quick. You should customize your resume for each job. We all know that. One of the easiest ways to do this is it's a lot of work up front, but then for the rest of your life, it's going to be easy. You're going to create what's called a master document, a master resume. This master resume can be as many pages as you want. It can have as many bullets as you want for each of the experiences. And ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to compile this whole entire library of everything you've ever done. When it comes time to apply to a job, you will copy and paste over what's relevant to the job. And then that's how you cater what correlates specifically to the job responsibilities that are being sought after. Once you do all that, you kind of just adding it in over the years as you go along, and then it's pretty much maintenance free. It takes care of itself. When we talk about leading with education and skills, unless you're 5 to 10 years in your field, and that's, it's well known that you don't need your education to be the first thing that's shown, you're qualified, you can move it, but always lead with your education and skills. Include unpaid work and activities. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Use proper format. Again, just make sure everything's kind of like newest to oldest. People read top to bottom, left to right. Again, grammar, watch the typos. Don't send a huge laundry list, okay? You can do that on LinkedIn, you can do that on Handshake, but you don't want to do that on your resume, right? You want a concise, nice one-page advertisement that is visually pleasing. Don't use crazy colors or fonts. This applies more to the generic resume, but it doesn't apply to someone who's a graphic design major, all right? So that's a little bit different. And then those who are in education or medical fields, it is okay to go over one page. Some more do's when we talk about resumes, definitely use bullet points, optimize your bullet points to make sure that they're correlated. Again, check your spelling and grammar, and quantifying your accomplishments just means that if you were to, say I dedicated 30 something hours, right? That you're pointing that out. How much of something did you spend? How much money did you budget? If there's anything you can quantify, you should. More do's and don'ts. Try not to speak badly of yourself or put too much information. There was a student that I had who had a gap in unemployment, didn't know how to explain it. When she wrote into her cover letter, she was talking about how she felt. She knew she wasn't qualified or didn't have the experience, but she wanted to apply. So she's talking bad about herself in that way. And she divulged too much information as to why she had a gap of unemployment. That's personal. You don't have to go above and beyond. Sometimes it can disqualify you. If you're in an interview and you feel that you're comfortable with that person, you can. But this is like the gateway, right? We want to get past the gatekeeper to get to the interview, so we don't want to disqualify ourselves. First, second, and third person, again, no such thing, right? Leave the pronouns out. This is a one-sheet ad that has the objective statements of why it is that you're qualified. References available upon request. There's no need for this either. It is implied that at some point there will be a background check and that they will ask for references. You don't need to take up space on your one-sheet ad that is going to say something that is already implied. You should, however, have a separate document that is somewhat matching the style of your resume that includes your references, so their full name, what their position is, or what their position was to you at the time, how many years you've known them, and then their contact information. All right, so we got 4 things there that you can include, and then just make sure that information is readily available. So here's an example of a resume. This resume is, if you can't see it, pop this open so it'll be a little bigger. This resume here is a very cookie cutter example, right? But what's important to note is that all of the things that we talked about are here. So when we talk about consistency, the dates are all lined up on the side here. When we talk about the data points that we're looking for, the content itself, right? We have the position title, we have the name of the organization or institution, we have the city, the state, and then we have our dates, right? Always lead with education. You'll notice that there is a section up above this that leads before education. This is the only time that it's acceptable, and this is optional. You can either have a section that says profile, objective, summary, some type of synopsis that talks about what the reasoning is for this, right? Or who you are, what your intention is. Personally, I like to leave this out unless you need to take up some space on your resume, which I'll show you on the next slide. Otherwise, this is something that you would put into your cover letter. From there, you can customize different sections such as awards or credentials or licensure or skill set or whatever you want. You can talk to us about that. And that's kind of where we start to get creative with it. And then you'll notice you have your content of actually what was done in those 2 positions. So this is one resume. You can see the size of it. Now, when we go to the next slide, you're going to see the exact same resume. This is the same exact content, not a single word is different. However, this is what we were talking about before about horizontal versus vertical. If you only have so much to put on your resume, what do you do with that information in terms of layout, right? Do we want to leave a huge white chunk of white space down here? No, because then visually it's not as appealing, and the recruiter thinks, oh, they don't have a lot. There's not a lot going on here. This is the same thing. The only difference is our information here is horizontal, and instead here it's vertical. There's also a space here between profiles, so there's a space between the sections. And then for the information down here, those content pieces, we have the name of the school, and then the location, city, state, and the date on a separate line. This might not seem like much, but when you start adding 1 line, 2 line, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's 9 lines of a wide margin paper. That's like 9 sentences. Look how much space that is. So now if you were to say, oh, I have another position I want to add, but I don't want to go over 1 sheet of paper, you have room down here now. So it's little things like that when we talk about layout and formatting, that make it visually appealing. Both look good, but this one looks better on the right because it's more fulfilled. So experience is experience. This is what we're talking about before when I said include unpaid activities. When you look here and you see, if you look closely at this resume, there is only 1 position on here that was professional experience, if you will. All right, so when we look at this particular student, first off, I want to point out that they took the time to categorize their experiences, which you very well can do. They categorized them, and then within the categories, they did newest to oldest, right? This is where you get creative when you're applying. If they were applying to a leadership or management position, these positions may be older, but this whole entire section would go above this one, okay? Because that's what's most relevant to what they're applying to. But when you look at professional experience, as I said before, this is the only position. It's a marketing internship over at State Street in Boston. Everything else is unpaid or some sort of other organization. So if you look, well, technically they're actually all the same organization because I'm going to explain. This is the managing editor of the school's newspaper. This is the DJ host of the school, captain of the women's softball team at the school, orientation leader at the school. This one's a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. And then we have a member of the college debate team. So you can see right off the bat that if this student was applying to a marketing communication job after college, that they're going to look and be like, okay, well, she did an internship over at State Street. The rest of this stuff is still very much applicable. Now, even if you say, okay, well, yeah, this is technically in marketing and this is technically in marketing and communication, so that fits well. What about this stuff? Well, the reality is, if you were hiring someone in marketing and communication, what's another quality that you would want to have when you hire somebody? Someone who displays leadership. So you see where it gets creative when you start to take your master resume and you start to take bits and pieces over and you create something that is relevant and marketable to the job that you're applying to. Anything is possible. And again, none of these positions were paid or professional in the sense of her industry. However, this one could have been paid. I don't know. But the point is that you can get creative with your resume. You can create different categories. It's all about how you market yourself. Think of your resume as a one-sheet advertisement. When we talk about cover letters, you're going to address the person that you're speaking to, and you're going to put the date, and then you're going to address them again. The reason for this part is because when we used to mail letters back in the day, you trifold it, you put it in an envelope, and that's what would show up in the window. It's just common courtesy that you still do that today. It looks professional. And then essentially your contact information can go at the bottom. However, the student kept the same header as they had at the resume for branding purposes. When we talk about a cover letter, please keep in mind that this part here about the sentences is just a guide. There is no, perfect cover letter. A cover letter is more about the quality than it is about the quantity that you write. All right. So when we talked about the resume, there's an easy way to set up and take your master resume, you invest that time of the foundation of it, right? And then you slowly just over time build upon it, but you copy and paste when you're ready to apply. It's a lot easier to put together something. When you do a cover letter, you have to do it from scratch every single time. I know nobody wants to hear that, but the reason why you have to do it is because of these two sections right here. So when we talk about breaking it down so that it's simple, we have an introduction. Who you are, what is your intention? Oh, my name is Eric Cabral. I'm applying to such and such position that I saw, so-and-so, blah, 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 right? You already addressed the person. Now you're telling them who you are, what you're bringing to the table in terms of, I'm sorry, not what you're bringing to the table, but why you're coming to the table, right? You're telling them, I want to apply for this position. When we talk about why you and why them, this is where the main bulk of the cover letter is. When we talk about why you, this is why you specifically. We don't want to reiterate everything that's on our resume because you're going to be reading that shortly. But what we do want to do is maybe dive into a couple things on the resume, talk about that more, or maybe even talk about something that's not on the resume. The cover letter does not have to be about professional experience when we talk about why you. It can be personal stuff. However, whatever you say, make sure that it ties into the role of what you're applying to, just like the same thing with the resume, right? So if you're going to talk about why you're so great, that sounds kind of conceited, but if you're going to talk about why you're so great and you're going to mention things that you can bring to the table, it makes sure it ties into something, right? When you talk about why them, be very careful not to talk about yourself again, because that tends to happen a lot. When we talk about why we want to be somewhere, we really need to do research about the company and understand something that we like about them. And then that's what we want to talk about here. Why are you choosing them? They know that you're submitting applications elsewhere. Is there something specific? And I can't stress this enough. You can submit a perfect resume or a really crappy resume. The thing that will always get you an interview is this. If you can master this piece, never mind your resume, if you can master this piece of a cover letter, it will get you somewhere. And we'll talk about why that matters more when we talk about hard skills and soft skills in the interview portion. And then lastly, you're wrapping up your conclusion. You're giving thank you, contact information, follow up, and thank you for your time for reading this. I look forward to hearing from you, so on and so forth. So when we get into interviewing, I think I got about like 6 minutes left. So I'm gonna try to speed through. Is that about right?
No, you have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I really want you guys to focus on is, can I make a human connection with this person, a genuine human connection? That's super, super important. And again, I'll explain why. These are the different types of interviews. We have an online test that's psychometric. It's a behavioral test that will screen you out. A phone call is typically 15 minutes just to screen you out again, make sure you're the right person. Face-to-face and video you're familiar with. Panel is one candidate amongst many employers interviewing them. And then group is just the opposite. So multiple people, candidates in an activity of some sort being monitored by the employer. Self-awareness. I'm not going to go too much into this in the slide because it's going to come up in every single other slide we talk about, but super, super important when we talk about how am I coming across? Can I understand how I'm coming across, which then allows me to visually see someone else's body language. A lot of what we say comes through in our body language, and that's a huge, huge factor during an interview conversation, whether it be virtual or in person. This is that soft skills and hard skills we were talking about. So no matter where you get hired, you're always going to be trained. Even if you already know what you're doing, you're still going to be trained. These hard skills get you to the interview, right? This is what you show on your resume and your cover letter. Oh, I have this degree. Oh, I am qualified for this. But are you a moldable person that they like? Can you make a genuine human connection? These soft skills are interpersonal skills, your communication, your flexibility, your ability to collaborate with other people, your people skills, right? These are the things that are very, very important, and 9 out of 10 times that you will get hired for. For example, really quick story. Girlfriend is a mathematician. She has a bachelor's degree in mathematics. She taught K through 12 for many years. She decided she wanted to change careers. She just got a job as a service engineer in a biotech company. How? She has no hard skills for that. She has no experience whatsoever. She has the soft skills. They're going to train you on all this stuff. So again, just goes to show you that there's possibility for that. Not going to spend too much time on this, but long story short, always air in the professional attire, even if it's McDonald's, doesn't matter. It's a missed opportunity if you don't take it to go above and beyond. Also, as of late, found out that employers may or may not ask you to stand up during your interview if you're doing it virtually. So make sure you're fully dressed because that came up recently. Practice mock interviews. We do them. It will help reduce the stress and anxiety. Again, they're common questions and it's very informal. It doesn't have to be formal, but it helps you prepare. The biggest takeaway from this is that you're always going to remember what to say and not how to say it. Right? I've given this presentation dozens of times and it never comes out the same way in terms of how I say things, but what I get across and what I want to say always comes out. All right. And that's the most important thing when you're practicing. Otherwise, if you start getting hung up on how you want to say things, you're going to get anxiety. This is a TED Talk that you can watch later when you get this presentation. It's only about 2 minutes. It's condensed. It basically, in long story short, talks about power posing, right? So in the animal kingdom, animals will get large when they feel confident. The same happens when humans, when they win a race or they do something that they achieved, right? There's this sense of what's known as like a power pose. And so what this research shows in this video is that people who go on job interviews tend to be stressful, who, if they power pose, it raises their testosterone levels, they feel more confident, they deliver a certain presence about them that changes in the interview. And so that is going back to that soft skills where, can I feel comfortable? Can I feel confident? Can I present the way that I need to present? When we talk about going to an interview, there's 3 parts to it. We want to arrive super early. Get there in the environment that is going to be stressful. Sit down, relax, try to calm yourself. Everybody you interact with could be a future coworker. This is where the interview starts the second you walk into that door. Always check in a little bit early so that you can be there. People watch, see the dynamic between people, learn people's names, that sort of thing. People talk after interviews happen. So this is a good way to kind of get your name and your personality out there ahead of time before you start sitting in the chair. When you do introductions, always give first and last name, make eye contact when you do so. Typically, try to give a semi-firm handshake. If it's virtual, you can give a wave. Always bring water with you so that you have, especially if you're talking a lot. And then if you're in person, make sure it's not in your non-dominant hair when you go to shake hands. Also, I really want to touch back on this really quick. When you arrive, if you're doing it virtually, make sure it's not tied to your notifications of text messages, anything like that. Make sure there's nothing moving in the background. Make sure that you have a professional environment, your audio works, all that stuff ahead of time before you start doing that. The interview itself, bring a copy of your resume and cover letter, just shows you're considerate. You're doing it virtually, set it up in an email, get ready to send it, and then tell them, hey, I just sent you a copy of this. Watch your body language, watch your tone and your attitude. Again, going back to self-awareness. Are you slouching in your chair? Are you hunched up and making yourself small when you're doing this, right? Pay attention to those things. Ask questions if something is not clear. The last thing you want to do is pretend like you heard something and then give an answer. And then they're like, nah, I don't think they heard what I said. And then maybe they don't feel comfortable bringing it up, so they don't, right? If you show that something's not clear and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, what was that? I didn't understand what you meant by that. Shows that you have confidence to advocate for yourself. You can stand up for yourself, so on and so forth, all right? That's that self-awareness, those interpersonal skills that we talked about. Typically, I have 3 questions that I usually go over just to kind of get students' brains working. I'll make this part really quick because these are the last 3 slides. Tell me about yourself. This is a question students get hung up on a lot, all right? So we always want to think about the intention behind questions. When we hear these questions, this is typically a first one that is just like an icebreaker. Always start with something basic, right? You're a student at Bunker Hill. Oh, okay, what am I doing at Bunker Hill? Oh, I'm studying this. Why am I studying this? Oh, because I want to do this, right? Just get the ball rolling. And then again, don't memorize how you want to say it, just what you want to say, and then kind of go from there, all right? They want to know your interests. They want to know who you are, a little bit about you. When we talk about harder questions, like tell me a challenging situation, how you encountered it at work, right? You need to be able to demonstrate that you can think on your feet. They want to know, can you handle stress and how do you handle stress? All right. So if you had a disagreement with somebody, you want to be able to show that there was a positive outcome in that sense. And again, they're looking for how do you think on your feet? These are all things that we can go over in a practice mock interview. If you reach out to me, there are many more questions like this. Last one, what do you think are your biggest weaknesses? The biggest takeaway from a question like this is you already know it's going to be negative, right? You know that you have to say something negative. So what does that mean you should do? You should end it on a positive note. So, oh, I get overwhelmed sometimes when I feel like I have a lot on my plate. But one of the ways I've improved on this is by syncing all my devices together, and I put it in my calendar. I take 10 minutes every day to organize myself, blah, 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 blah. So it's a simple way to do that. That's pretty much the end.